What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Bitcoin Magazine podcast. I'm Grahm.
What's up, y'all? Dave over here.
Today, we've got an interview with Aleksandar Svetski, CEO and founder of Amber.
Amber is a Bitcoin investing app. It's not available in the States yet, so we haven't used it, but its product value is basically to bring Bitcoin to the average person. I like this idea a lot because it sounds like an attempt to increase adoption among the herd.
Aleksander and Amber are based in Australia, and that means Dave had to get up really early to perform this interview, but that's not that strange because Dave has never slept a day in his life.
Yeah, I don't sleep at all, so this was totally normal for me. In all honesty, I enjoyed talking to Aleks a lot, even though it was at 5 in the morning. I mean, he's a pretty smart guy, and he's been in this Bitcoin game for a while now. So basically, Aleks does not like blockchain hype, and I definitely consider him a Bitcoin maximalist, but he's honestly, more than anything else, just a contrarian. His thesis, while we were talking, was that fundamentally, in the world right now, Bitcoin is the ultimate contrarian bet.
Okay, so like betting against the Packers this Thursday night?
Grahm, we don't need to get into your degenerative gambling tactics right now. Let's just get into the interview with Aleks.
All right, fair enough. Enjoy.
Hey, Aleks. This is Dave here. Welcome to the Bitcoin Magazine podcast. It's
Thank
really
you, man.
early.
It's really early for you. It's really late for me.
Yeah. And Aleks, where are you again?
Brisbane, man. So for those of you who don't know where Brisbane is, it's in Australia. It's just a nicer version of Sydney, which Sydney is a shithole. So sorry to everyone who lives in Sydney.
Yeah, just curious, what's Brisbane like? What's like the weather like and stuff?
Dude, it's so we work in Celsius here, so I don't know what this is going to turn into in Fahrenheit, but I mean, the winter is beautiful. It's sunny. The weather's calm. It's blue skies, about 20 degrees Celsius, which you know what, just out of curiosity now, I want to know what that is in Fahrenheit. So 20 degrees Celsius to Fahrenheit. Let's see. 68. So yeah, so it's nice and pleasant over winter, and it's a smaller city. It's much more practical to live in. You don't get that insane kind of traffic as you get in Sydney. Like in Sydney, you can't get anywhere.
Yeah.
Just people are just generally a little bit more laid back, and we haven't had, because I originally grew up in Sydney, so we also in Brisbane hasn't had the same magnitude of like property bubble and all the other bullshit that you sort of get with a primary city like Sydney. I mean, you know, a normal human being can't afford to live in Sydney anymore. Like it's just fucking ridiculous.
Sounds like New York or San Francisco.
Dude, it's like that. Except at least you know, New York's a financial hub, and San Francisco, you got tech coming out of there. Like Sydney's sort of run by drug dealers, personal trainers, hookers, and bankers.
All right. Okay. Well, what's Brisbane like?
Brisbane's fantastic, man. It's a new city. It's an emerging city. You know, there's been a lot of property development here and stuff like that. So there's a bit of a bubble in that sense. But other than that, like from a lifestyle perspective, it's really nice. You're an hour from the Gold Coast, which is one of the nicest beaches in the world. You're 2 hours from Byron Bay, and that's sort of an area that everyone sort of knows. That's kind of like the you know, it's a much nicer version of you know, I don't say Venice Beach, much more natural and all that sort of stuff. It's kind of like hippie central, but it's really nice. And then you're 2 hours south of the Sunshine Coast, which is again one of the most beautiful spots in the entire world. So it's very convenient to live in. You know, you're an hour flight from Sydney if you do need to go down there. You're 2 hours from Melbourne if you need to go down there. So I think it's an excellent city.
And then just in general, in like Brisbane or maybe Australia in general, I'm not as totally aware of it. Like, what's the crypto culture like? Who's out there?
Dude,
obviously have your own company that you've started.
Yep. So I would say that there's a good tight knit cohort of Bitcoiners, but Australia, because it's a little bit more affluent, we're plagued with shitcoiners, and so you've got shitcoiners on one side, so people just running around with fucking, I mean, the amount of crap that we saw during 2017, and we had all of the exchanges in Australia, the ones that did the most volume were the ones that traded the most shit coins. So it was a real sort of, bubble sort of mentality and get rich quick and all that sort of stuff. So sort of one element of it. Then the other side, you've got this whole blockchain thing going on where, it's kind of the narrative is, oh, it's not Bitcoin, it's blockchain. And that's just, there's this, there's a couple organizations, I won't name names, but, they've become the self-governing body in this country. And it's, the kind of people, some of the people that are on there, you just shake your head and wonder what the fuck are you doing on a board of a self-regulating body? And they sort of push the narrative of blockchain for the sake of blockchain. I would say 90% of them have absolutely no idea what the fuck the word even means, or what relevance it's got to anything. And half of them, or probably more, wouldn't even hold any Bitcoin. Like, it's just, it's a bit disappointing. And then you've got a couple of really good people. Like, you've got, Stefan Livera's obviously down here. You've got Rory, one of the Bitcoin plebs, legend. You've got Haas McCook. You've got some really good sort of hardcore Bitcoiners. But we're a small cohort, and I'm hoping that our little stubborn minority is gonna grow that cohort further.
And this, like, you're talking about the Bitcoin versus blockchain debate, and I feel like that's sort of right now, that seems to me like where you've sort of planted your flag, is trying to explain that difference and why you think blockchain is such a wrong way to go.
Man.
And real quick, could you explain like what that governing body is? You're saying that's seems to be pushing blockchain in Australia.
Well, they've just changed their name to Blockchain Australia. So
Okay.
so yeah, it's they're convinced. It's funny. I was in a round table with them, and I was sitting there thinking, like, Bitcoin was designed to, effectively disintermediate and sort of, remove rent seekers. I have never seen, like, the entire table was full of fucking rent seekers, like lawyers and this guy and that guy. And, this guy thinks he's a policy guy and all sort of rubbish. Like, I was thinking, what are you guys all doing here? Like, what do you actually want? And they're all just pushing their own agendas, trying to earn money their way. And look, I'm not against people earning a buck, fine, go do your thing. Like, I'm a free market guy, but I just feel like that narrative is just so shallow and it's so short-sighted. Like, I'm not interested in, some incremental improvement, arguably, if there isn't even an improvement, for some database crap. Like, what I'm interested in is, the reinvention of money, the reinvention of economics, what Bitcoin is doing is profound to me. And that is really, really fucking cool. This sort of intellectual sophistry around blockchain, I have no interest in it. And it's just funny, the kind of people that it attracts and the kind of organization that Blockchain Australia has become. Like, it used to be, Bitcoin Australia, and then it turned into the Australian Digital Commerce Association or whatever it was, or, I don't know if that was separate. Now it's Blockchain Australia because, they're fighting to try and sound relevant. And, they're fighting for the crumbs that they're going to get from, whatever government body deems them as innovators, or whatever bullshit bank rolls out another blockchain project, where they can become advisors. It's fucking sad, man. It's pitiful.
Right. So to me, it sounds like you're saying that they kind of they're looking at this technological movement as just sort of the next new thing that they can kind of, that they can maybe ride to get that promotion or some sort of expertise or that new job. And
that's it.
And that's not what you're interested in. And can you like explain what it is you're interested in? You kind of already touched on this, but like with Bitcoin in particular and your company, Amber, like what are you trying to do?
For sure, man. So I think to to close the loop on them, I think, yeah, they're effectively interested in PR and rent seeking. And I mean, and that fundamentally is their jobs, you know, so I really can't take that away from them to a large degree, you know, like, you know, that's what they're going to do. Rent seekers are going to seek rent. And, you know, they're just sort of, I think they're just blinded by their own biases, and they think that there is something here. When they realize that the emperor has no clothes, you know, they're all going to be, you know, jumping off to the next thing that they can really, you know, hopefully align themselves with and make money out of. Right. So they're just, they're not in it because they give a fuck. They're in it because it's, you know, potentially it sounds hot. Right.
Yeah.
Whereas me, I guess, you know, there's a number of things here for me. You know, number one, I guess I like to be involved in, or I like the idea of being involved in something so profound that it could impact, you know, hundreds of millions, billions, or potentially everybody on the face of the planet. So, you know, I've sort of said it before. I say that this generation, or this period of human history, will be defined as the point in time where money and state, you know, were separated. You know, the last major separation that was similar was the separation of church and state, you know, and that sort of brought forth the scientific revolution, and, you know, that sort of brought forth the industrial revolution. So it's like a pivotal moment in human history. And I think we're at that point here where we're actually, you know, through the emergence of technology, through the emergence of, you know, connected networks and interconnected, you know, communication networks and knowledge and information and data, you know, we're coming to this point in time in society where we've somehow redefined the concept of money, and money being this, or we've invented a new tool for money that meets all the requirements that an ideal money should be. And money being the resource or the unit of measurement that, you know, or sorry, the unit that measures the work, the value, the input into society from its participants. You know, so money is this fabric that allows society to function. And, you know, reinventing that layer of society, you know, in a time especially that is so contentious, where, you know, there is so much concentration and centralization of power around that societal resource, again, money, is such a profound thing to be involved in. You know, this is sort of why I think Bitcoin's been, you know, defined as this never-ending rabbit hole. Like, it just keeps going down because it just touches so many elements around the world. So that kind of broad impact really interests me, number one. And then number two, I think it's, you know, I've always been a contrarian at heart.
Yeah.
You know, I've always looked to run against the herd. You know, I always do the opposite. I mean, ever since I was a kid, like, I was, you know, a badass at school, piss all the teachers off, but at the same time, I was academically, you know, the strongest at school, so the teachers never knew what to do. So I was always this sort of this paradox and this, you know, contrarian sort of person, and I've done that all my life. And I was kind of saying this on the Adam Meister show just a little bit earlier today. Was, you know, Bitcoin is the ultimate contrarian bet, I guess, in society. It's this ultimate, you know, contrarian opportunity. Like, I kind of say to people, that if you want to win in life, if you want to get ahead, you know, if you want to do more, be more, etc., is you want to make the contrarian bet. You want to run against the grain. You don't want to be where the crowd is, because, you know, you fundamentally want to be, you know, either out in front or a different place. You want to be unique. And, you know, if you look at Bitcoin, it's this thing which has been so successful over the last 10, 11 years. You know, something that nobody thought would succeed. And to this day, it's still dismissed by the masses. You know, you go around on the street and you talk to people, you know, somehow fucking think Bitcoin's dead. They're like, oh, didn't that thing crash to zero or whatever? You know, you talk to these blockchainers, you know, they all think that, you know, the important thing is blockchain, not Bitcoin. You talk to the shitcoiners, and they all think they've got a faster or a more private or a global, you know, computer version of fucking Bitcoin, you know, and they're all fucking deranged. It's just so funny. It just gets dismissed by so many people, but it is fundamentally, from a first principle standpoint, just so profound. And I just love those elements. It's this thing that just touches so many areas in the world and in life, in philosophy, physics, psychology, society, evolution, anthropology, all of these interesting topics. And it's just still so contrarian. So I don't know, man. I've fundamentally found what I'm going to spend the next few decades of my life immersed in, at least. And we'll see where we go from there.
Yeah. And to get into that further, like, obviously what we're talking about here is not necessarily investment advice.
Yep.
With my limited knowledge of investing, I know the basic understanding is that you want to diversify your portfolio. Diversification is a good thing. Variety is a good thing. But at least in crypto, it seems like you don't really believe that. It seems like you think Bitcoin is the only thing that's worth paying attention to. Can you sort of explain your thinking there, in that it seems, I mean, that is a contrarian view to me.
Yep. So there's a couple things there. There's probably 3 points, and while I'm going to just note these down so that way I don't forget them as I'm talking about them, because I can ramble on sometimes. So one is diversification a good thing? Number two is convergent network effects, and number three is correlation. So let's hit all of those. So number one, most people say diversification is a good thing, and I think if you're intelligently diversifying and you're able to, you have the know-how around being able to lower your risk while increasing your reward. It's sort of like that Sharpe ratio thing. Diversification can be a very good thing because you can build a stronger, better returning portfolio and a more robust type of portfolio on the way down. But there is also a really strong school of thought, which is concentration is a path to greater wealth. You look at the Mark Zuckerbergs and the Jeff Bezoses of the world, who've sort of doubled down on their bets throughout their lives. And fundamentally, Jeff Bezos concentrated his bet around Amazon, and he's done far better than any trader or any hedge fund manager on the planet, right? So so there is multiple schools of thought there, and I think if you are going to be betting on a winner, you should sort of gear your your investment strategy toward that. So that's sort of one thing. So I don't blanket believe diversification is a good thing, but if we apply the 80-20 rule, probably for 80% of people, or these days the 80-20 rule is more like 99-1. For most people, diversification is probably a good thing because for them to pick the winner, it's not as easy. So statistically speaking, you're safer diversifying than you are not diversifying. So then let's just make the assumption that for most people, diversification is better. So then if we take that concept of diversification, what diversification means is lowering the risk profile of your portfolio by combining multiple asset classes together that are uncorrelated. And uncorrelated means that they don't move in the same direction and they don't, move in sync at the same time. So doing that requires you to mix assets, that are fundamentally different. Like you mix gold, with stocks, with bonds, with real estate, etc. So that's what you would call a diversified, portfolio. Or you mix maybe defensive stocks with, growth stocks, for example, so that you can, spread, the risk. Now, as soon as you move into crypto, everything's fucking correlated. And it's all correlated to Bitcoin. So by diversifying in crypto, you actually get the reverse, or you get the opposite of what you're trying to do. Diversification, the goal of diversification is to lower risk. By combining multiple shitcoins alongside Bitcoin, all you're doing is you're increasing your leverage. You're increasing your beta. It's fucking madness. So what you've done is you haven't diversified, but diversification in crypto has increased your leverage, which has increased your risk, and you've done the opposite of what you're trying to do. It's the biggest fallacy, or it's the biggest scam that I've ever heard. Inside the in the crypto investment space, all these moron fund managers, all these moron traders, and all those shitheads that are out there telling people to diversify across multiple cryptos. They just, as soon as you hear that, you know straight away that that person has no fucking clue what they're talking about. Apologies for the swearing here, but
Yeah.
it kind of gets to me because that's you mentioned earlier that that's a contrarian viewpoint. Yes, it is, but the definition of a contrarian viewpoint is saying something or believing something that most people don't agree on, but doing it from a basis of first principles. And the first principle here is about correlation, being the predicate for diversification. And these people just run around and they don't get it. So the concept is flawed, from the beginning. And then finally is when you look at Bitcoin and you look at money as a concept, money is a convergent network effect. And what that effectively means is that the kind of like, communication or language within a specific jurisdiction, it converges to the one language because that's when that language is most functional. Money converges to a single unit in a specified jurisdiction. It's why we have $1 US inside the US. It's why we have one British pound inside the UK. It's why we have one Australian dollar in Australia. By mixing them up on a state basis, you would have a ridiculous amount of friction in the economy. So money is this commodity which arbs out all of that friction and converges to unity. From a functionality perspective. And then from the other perspective, this is where the network effect starts to accelerate, is that the best money is also generally the most liquid. So what ends up happening is liquidity finds more liquidity, and it starts to create this recursive effect where more liquidity begets more liquidity, begets more liquidity, and it all converges around one. And you end up with a situation of a winner take all kind of marketplace where everyone wants to hold, the best form of money and the one that's most liquid, and the one that's most liquid becomes the best form of money, and the best form of money becomes more liquid, and this sort of network effect starts to happen. So those three things there just basically mean that game, set, match, there is absolutely no reason to touch any other crypto other than Bitcoin, unless you think in some way, shape, or form you're a genius fucking trader that might be able to make more sats along the way. But mate, that headache is not worth it. You're better off just buying some Bitcoin and just going to the Bahamas and relaxing. Like seriously, that's sort of the best strategy.
Yeah. And I kind of want to ask you a little bit about your views on sort of the nature of what Bitcoin is, without getting too abstract here. A lot of people see Bitcoin as the new gold. Another thing that people say is that it's sort of becoming the global currency. It's also, I think it's also probably pretty clear to people that payments, at least on a smaller scale, is not really feasible right now. Bitcoin's being used more as a store of value. And then, so there's a Grisham's law, which sort of indicates that bad money usually chases good money out of circulation. And I think this is pretty interesting because if you look around right now, nobody spends Bitcoin. That's just a fact. They hold. And I guess the thing about Bitcoin at this point in time is that it hasn't really been proven necessarily. It's still too young for people to know that it's got a proven track record of being better money than what's out there, other than what a lot of people just believe is true based on its nature. So like in that view, what I'm curious about is like, how do you see in the future, how do you see Bitcoin being used in the scenario that it might be too good money for our world right now. Does that make sense?
Yeah, well, look, so I agree with you. So, well, there's heaps of threads to pull on there. So I think one of the first bits is that, no, Bitcoin fundamentally is a payments network and a monetary system and a monetary unit and a settlement network. It's all of these things, at the same time. But, it's an emergent thing. So, people, the advent of Bitcoin and, what brought a lot of people in the beginning is this idea that we want an emergent market-based money, like a good that emerges in the market over time, that is priced by the market, that gets adopted by people, not by fiat, not by decree, but by, people adopting it for its attributes, kind of like gold emerged over thousands of years because it had unique physical attributes or physical properties that made it a better form of money, right? So people want this emergent market money, but they don't want to give it time to emerge. Like money has to emerge and it has to start off as a collectible because people, you need to have these generational shifts where, people's faith in this object grows over time, and it fucking helps extraordinarily. It helps significantly if that faith is based on something that more people can objectively agree on and point to. So that's where, money is fundamentally, a fiction, a shared fiction that is it's a construct by human beings for the purpose of allowing society to function, right? But the object that we use to substantiate that fiction so that we can all point to objectively has to be the money with the best attributes and the best the best parameters effectively. And Bitcoin today is this, it's in this, is it storming, forming and norming, I think is that saying, right? It's very much still in the early days. This thing's still storming. This thing is still, really just gearing up for the potential to become this broadly accepted, robust, unstoppable, uncensorable, unconfiscatable, form of monetary unit. But in order for it to get there, it's going to take decades of contentious sort of growth. It's going to take a lot of disagreements. It's going to take people fucking arguing over shit. It's going to take misunderstandings. It's going to take the evolution of narrative. It's going to take all of these things. So this is all sort of part and parcel of the journey to a robust market-based money. It's perfectly normal. I just think, again, in a society where we've been indoctrinated into this high time preference of, everything has to happen now, move fast and break things, buy, consumer, invest in fucking anything just to chase yield. We've sort of become desensitized to time, to temporal concepts. And we've forgotten that something, that really is robust, that, gets stronger with time, fundamentally requires time to get stronger, right?
You're right.
It's, that circular logic applies there, right? And, so long term, I do believe that because, and I sort of opened with, Bitcoin is fundamentally a payments network. It's a money, it's an economic system, it's a settlement system. It's all of these things in one. So the fact that payments is baked into Bitcoin, the ability to settle and, transact is baked into Bitcoin, means that it's got the primitives to allow us to abstract layers that are more optimized for the different functions that the core of those functions is baked into the initial layer. So yes, at some point in time, when this becomes more of a broadly accepted monetary store of value, Bitcoin can begin to evolve into more of a medium of exchange, because at some point, just fundamentally, this is physics, is the the return on, your asset, your return on investment is going to taper off. Like, you're not going to get thousands of % growth on a yearly basis when Bitcoin is worth, $500,000 or $1 million. That's just not going to happen anymore, right? That stuff's going to taper off. Like, to go from 1 million to 10 million is a 10x move. Now, that 10x move may take 10 freaking years. Whereas to go from $10 to $100, could take 3 days. So, and that's the same percentage move in terms of magnitude. So what you end up getting is this natural movement toward that unit being used more as a medium of exchange, because people are willing to spend it, because the incentive to hold starts to taper off over time.
We're going to take a quick break. Stick around. We'll be right back.
So, Dave, you still living on the dark net?
Yep, all day, every day.
Do you really need that much privacy, bro?
Graham, arguing that you don't care about the right to privacy because you have nothing to hide is the same as saying you don't care about free speech because you have nothing to say.
Okay. I guess that's true.
I'm telling you, man, too many spam emails, targeted ads. I just can't take it anymore.
Well, easy, Dave. Haven cares about your privacy. Have you downloaded it yet?
Oh yeah, I have. I've even sold a few things.
Like what?
That's private.
Okay. Well, for those of you who don't know, Haven is the world's first privacy-focused shopping app for iOS and Android devices. You can shop and chat with other users under the warm security blanket of end-to-end encryption.
And you can buy and sell stuff using popular cryptocurrencies like Litecoin, Zcash, and even Bitcoin if you want to. I'm a hodler. I wouldn't do it.
I don't blame you, Dave. Tell us how the privacy works again.
All your crypto data about your transactions, messages, and all your sensitive information is stored locally on your device.
So, in other words, it's completely under your control.
Yep, Haven uses advanced technology to keep your information private while being simple to use. You don't need to know how end-to-end encryption works or understand decentralization. You just need to know it works for you on Haven.
Well, that's great. It also says that all communication is peer-to-peer and end-to-end encrypted. There's no middleman. And you know how I feel about middlemen, Dave.
I can't stand them either, Graham.
Their time will come. Their time will come.
If you care about your privacy, check out Haven today.
Go to gethaven.app/BitcoinMagPod to get $5 in free crypto today.
Again, that's gethaven.app/BitcoinMagPod.
That's a lot of spelling, Dave. Boom. Privacy engaged.
To the moon!
Woo!
This initial phase now, this storming phase, has to be volatile by definition. It has to emerge. It has to have these wild swings, these wild moves, because it gets people in, it draws capital in, it creates contention, it builds that robust, anti-fragile sort of nature of Bitcoin in the early days. And then as that capital builds, and the idea of a fixed supply money is just so profoundly important. It's just not funny, is that as this capital builds, the network gets stronger and these recursive network effects start to take hold, more capital comes on, and over time that asymptotic curve, Murad did that graph, and I'm sure you've seen it, is Bitcoin's life cycle in terms of its evolution. It's just spot on. It's perfect. It's this thing that has to evolve temporally over time, and the narrative is going to change for Bitcoin in terms of what its optimal use case is at that particular point in time. And we, as enterprising human beings and as enterprising individuals and entrepreneurs and companies and everything, we're just going to build products, services, and functions that overlay Bitcoin at different points in time that fundamentally utilize the best of Bitcoin at that particular point in time. And right now, the best of Bitcoin is this emergent store of value, which is growing in terms of price. So what's the best fucking use case and what's the best business? Shit. Build something that helps people accumulate Bitcoin. And that kind of turns into what I'm doing.
Yeah. When you say that, I think of companies like Lolly too. But So
Yeah.
what are y'all? What kind of products are y'all building? What is Amber doing?
Well, Amber's building a Bitcoin accumulation app. Simple as that. You set it up, you link your bank account, you set an amount and a frequency, and this thing dollar cost averages you into Bitcoin without you even thinking about it, without you even noticing it. Like, the most important thing people can do today with respect to Bitcoin is to buy the shit and hold it. That's it. Forget about trading, forget about all this other fucking crap, forget about, merchant facilities and payments and where's my adoption and, world global computers and fast payments and all that shit. All of the cool shit will come. Step one, the battle that we have to win first, is a non-state controlled money that is uncensorable, unconfiscatable, and uninflatable. That's like milestone number one. And that milestone is going to take a couple decades. So, whilst that's happening, we need to build products that optimize for that. We're doing it here at Amber. The boys at Lolly are doing it. There's some good products out there that are Bitcoin only that are optimizing for that use case at this point in time.
Yeah. And do you have any idea what the horizon is for when the Amber app will be available?
Oh, dude, we're available now in Australia, man.
Oh,
so,
okay.
Yeah, we're rock and rolling down here. I'm hoping that we're going to launch a couple of new jurisdictions at the end of this year. Potentially Europe, potentially UK, but I'm also in talks in some other jurisdictions as well. So, yeah, man, we're really just focusing on listening to the marketplace right now and just getting that nice product market fit going.
Sure.
And when that's ready, man, we're gonna start scaling this baby up.
Yeah, and I think that goes into what you've written about and talked about as far as how to actually market yourself for a product market fit in this space right now. And you sort of talk about creating a signal as opposed to creating a noise. So that's focus to me. And yeah, and if you want to go into that just a little bit about your philosophy on marketing, I'd be curious about that.
Yeah, well, so I think the article I think you're referring to is where I wrote Amber's a Bitcoin business, not a crypto company. Is that right?
Yep.
Yeah. So I wrote a bunch of things in there where I was saying, look, there's multiple reasons why we've chosen to optimize for Bitcoin over anything else. And as I talked about it in the beginning, is I just think it's unethical to sell people shit coins, under the guise of diversification. So we sort of start off with that. Then secondly, I talk about, security being, a function of, what's your attack surface? The best way to make something more secure is just to remove the risk altogether. So by focusing purely on Bitcoin, and focusing on building the app to be a more buy-side accumulation focused app, we can have cold storage, on one asset, and we can manage that really well. So that's another thing. A lot of these exchanges have got hacked because of all the issues around managing and supporting 50 million shitcoins, right? And then the other strong theme in there was about signal over noise ratio. Is I think so many products launched over 2017 and 2018, which were just so fucking noisy. Everyone was building the next shitcoin exchange, that looked like Binance and that tasted like Binance and that smelt like Binance, and they were all doing the same thing. And it was, who could list more shitcoins and who could, launch their own token that gives people free trading credits, and it had all this just noise. And I think what we really tried to do with Amber was be the signal in that noise to say, look, we know what we're talking about. We're offering a Bitcoin only product because the winning this game is all about accumulating as much Bitcoin as you can, and just being really clear, narrow, and focused with that message, with that cohesion around the team, around our mission, around our vision, around our it's just focused on so many levels: the tech stack, the philosophy, the marketing message, on so many things. And I think that's going to just bring a lot of strength for us long term, whilst other businesses are focused on trying to manage all of this crap around them. So that was sort of the premise of that article. And I think, it was funny as well. I was writing that, and then I saw this tweet storm from VJ, and he was sort of echoing, the same points. And I was like, fucking hell. Like, it's funny how, the Bitcoin psyche sort of emerges, and, multiple people come along and sort of come up with a very similar concept at around the same time. It's just, it's hilarious. And yeah, when he sort of posted that, I was like, oh yeah, shout out to VJ for, reinforcing that point. And I sort of included him in the article, but it's just, it's such an important thing for us. And it just makes what I do so much more meaningful, man. Like, yeah.
Yeah. Real quick, VJ, can you just say who he is, his Twitter handle?
Yeah. VJ Boyaparty. So BOYAPATI, I think. Boyaparty. That's off the top of my head. So dude, sorry if I spelled that wrong, but, really cool Bitcoiner. I only literally heard about him about 5 or 6 months ago, I think. Yeah. So, and then the first sort of podcast that I listened to him was, Stefan's podcast about 2.5 months ago. So I never really knew much about him. And it was only like, I saw that tweet storm that he did, and I was like, oh fuck, this guy's cool. He gets it. And then I listened to a couple of his things with, Stefan, and he's definitely, he's one of the rare few, who really, 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 really get Bitcoin, man. So he's an OG. Definitely follow this guy. He's, yeah, one of my favorites.
Yeah. Okay. And then, let's say like in a world we're assuming where cryptocurrency, just by how it's built, is more frictionless and convenient to use than say fiat currency. Do you see there being space internationally for something like Facebook's Libra coin, or a crypto backed by a government?
Look, funny, we touched on this on the Adam Meister show as well. So, a lot of people think hyper Bitcoinization is a given, and look, I'd almost agree with that. I think, in a long enough time frame, that is probably the direction that, we're going to head in. Now, I don't think that's going to be a clean journey. I think we're going to have, multiple, cycles. We're going to have all sorts of shit that's going to happen along that path. But ultimately everything will, I at least believe will converge, onto Bitcoin. Now, that could be multi-decade, could even be multi-century. So in the intervening times, I think what's most likely going to happen, in the coming decades, and I use the plural there specifically, is that we'll probably end up with like parallel economic systems, where you'll have the USD crypto, which is sort of like Fed coin or USD/NSA coin, whatever. So that'll sort of be one system. You'll have fucking China coin, which will be like the social credit score, fucking commie coin. You'll have, Zuckbucks, or Libra. So you'll have this corporate type, non-sovereign issued monetary unit. And then you'll have Bitcoin, which is the free, censorship resistant, easy to opt in, easy to opt out economic system, which is fixed, fundamentally uninflatable, unconfiscatable, uncensorable. So it'll appeal to people, especially in the early days, that are more like us, I guess, people who are looking for those attributes in money, people who are looking for hard money, people who are more akin to living a low time preference life, people who want to be rewarded for production, for value, for input, than for rent seeking. So I think because fundamentally the world is so, coked up on high time preference at the moment, and wanting everything now versus later, there is definitely space for the Libras of the world, for the the Fed coins and the Chinese coins of the world. So the Chinese coins of the world, they're going to be sort of trying to impose, their existing control and power over people to sort of lock people into that system. The US coin is, they have a bit of a head start because they've obviously got the US dollar, and that's such a prominent, broad, liquid type of money. And that's going to take a long time to overturn. Facebook has an advantage to, deliver their monetary unit to 2 billion people because they've already got that sort of reach. So that's going to have a place as well. And, that's going to incentivize obviously high time preference and spending and ease of use and all that sort of stuff. So that they're all going to be potentially functional because the world takes time to transition. None of this shit's going to happen cleanly and smoothly. But what we're going to have is people, the smart people in the world, the people who are the best producers, the people who are the, fundamentally the most intelligent, they're going to slowly migrate over to this opt-in system, which is fundamentally free, which is Bitcoin. They're going to be able to have more control over their financial life. And what's likely going to happen is these other parallel economic systems are probably going to get more and more draconian, more and more centralized, more and more big brothery. People are going to, in those spaces are going to either be more and more turned off, or, you'll get this massive polarity in there. And, some people stand, some people sort of flee to the one place that they can flee, which will be the only, refuge of economic and political freedom available in the world, Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And, the fact that it exists, it's profoundly important because we as a society have that opt-in, or, opt out of the existing and opt into that. But it'll be a transition, and it won't happen without a fight. It won't happen without mess. And many people will take, decades to sort of come to terms with that. And, along the line, there's probably, again, in testament to the fact that it's going to be messy, I almost guarantee that each of these other guys, the Chinese coin, the Fed coin, and Libra coin, because they're going to try and talk about having some sort of reserve ratios to try and bring some sort of trust into their money, they're all probably going to hold some fucking Bitcoin themselves.
Yeah.
Because game theoretically it makes sense, right, to hold some Bitcoin. So yeah, I think what's likely going to happen is, Bitcoin today is this emergent, asset that people are using for, speculation and, financial sort of, sovereignty and all this sort of stuff. So it's in this emergent storming phase. Probably long term, we're probably, as a society or as a world, we're going to go to this multiple parallel economic systems, that are defined by where the control, where the critical mass, and where the momentum already exists, which is sort of why I try and define it as Fed coin, China coin, and Libra. Maybe there's going to be a euro in there, who knows? Whilst you've got Bitcoin here sort of doing its thing. And then long term, I think everything will probably have to converge on to Bitcoin. And that may not be a pretty process. That may be fundamentally bloody. It may be, 50, 100 years from now, we may have to fucking blow up half the fucking world in order to converge on Bitcoin, in the process of these guys, these flawed other systems trying to hang on to the last bit of relevance they have. So yeah, man, it's we're at the beginning of something so much bigger than most people realize. It's just not funny. So
Well, Aleks, thanks for talking. If people want to follow you and learn more about the kind of stuff you think about and you write and what you're doing at Amber, how can they do that?
Yeah, dude, I'm blasting Twitter a lot. So, Alex Svetski, my name's spelled a bit funny, Aleks, Svetski, Svetski. I'll show you, chuck that in the show notes anyway. If you search my name, all sorts of shit comes up on Google anyway. So I do a lot of writing. I'm trying to do more guest writing on more mainstream publications these days. So the things like Yahoo Finance, etc., so that I can try and get the message of Bitcoin out to, outside of our echo chamber. So I'm hoping to sort of red pill people more outside of that. I'm going to actually also start my own channel. So I finally decided to fucking do it because I've got so much things to say. And a lot of people say that, I can articulate it well. So I'm going to start a channel. I'm not sure what I'm going to call it yet. I think I might call it Wake Up. And, I'll probably just wax lyrical about a topic, maybe, every week or every couple of weeks. And, yeah, so, I'll announce that sort of stuff on Twitter as I get a bit closer. But, yeah, man, Medium, Twitter, Hackanoon, sort of where I do most of my content stuff. And been on a couple of podcasts and really happy to be on this one with you, man. So, yeah.
Yeah, that sounds great. Down the line, we should talk about we should coordinate possibly writing on Bitcoin Magazine. That'd be fun.
100%, man. I'd love to actually. That's there was an article that I wrote recently. Sorry about that, man. There was an article that I wrote recently, which I would have preferred publishing on your publication, but I had a deadline on it. I wanted to get it out. So that was the Bitcoin, blockchain, and Libra. So if anyone searches that with my name, it's on, I think, blockchain.news or bitcoin.news or some shit.
Uh-huh.
And yeah, I kind of gave a rundown of what I just explained then is, I called it blockchain, Bitcoin, and Libra. What's bullshit, what's brilliant, and what's Big Brother, right? And I kind of laid out that, blockchain is this meaningless fucking fad that, we'll look back on in 5 years and be like, haha, remember those idiots? The real fight, like Libra couldn't give two shits about blockchain. What they're interested in is this, the creation of a non-sovereign money, because money is the ultimate, it's the most important resource in society. So that's what they're fundamentally interested in. And, Libra, in one sense, it validates Bitcoin because, I think for more people in the world than anything else, it sort of opened them up to the idea of the potential of a money issued not by the state. So I think that was one thing, but it also validated Bitcoin because it reinforced Bitcoin's like the importance of Bitcoin's choice to be this money that's owned by the people, that's, self-sovereign, that is not run by a consortium or a corporation. So it stands in, it both opened people's minds to Bitcoin, but it also positioned itself as it juxtaposed itself to what Bitcoin represents. And then thirdly, it also just made obsolete every other fucking shitcoin and altcoin out there because, all of the things that they were optimizing for, speed and smart contracts and all that sort of stuff can be done there. And it makes all this other crap irrelevant. And it just reinforces the intelligence and the wisdom of the Bitcoin community in optimizing for censorship resistance and for decentralization in Bitcoin over all of the other features that people were screaming for. And again, it just shows how much Bitcoin rewards long-term, low time preference thinking versus what all this other crap was about. So yeah, man, I'm going off on tangents again, but I love this space. I love what this community is doing. And I just love how this thing just becomes more and more profound every day that you get into it.
Yeah. We like hearing from you. It's good to pay attention to the signals and the noise.
Thank you, my man. We really appreciate that.
Take care, buddy.
Take care, man. I'll talk to you soon.
The Bitcoin Magazine podcast is a BTC Media produced podcast on the Let's Talk Bitcoin network. You can find us over on Twitter at Bitcoin Magazine, and you can find other engaging shows over at letstalkbitcoin.com. Thanks for tuning in, guys. We will see you next time.